in your experience, when you create a product roadmap, do you consider any prerequisites? If so, what are those?
Yeah, absolutely. I think before you can have a roadmap, you really need to understand your product. And there are a few things that you need to know about the product before you can plan ahead. So you need to know, what is the need that my product is solving? What's the vision for solving that need? And what do my users want? What do they value?
Right.
All of those are going to dictate the different features, initiatives that you put on that roadmap.
That's great.
And then on top of that though, so you have your goals and your plans, but they also need to be feasible. So you need to understand that you have the resources to achieve those. That's kind of like what we were speaking about with finances. You also need to have buy-in from the various people that are involved on the product. So depending on who that is, it might be sales, it might be marketing, it might be executive level buy-in. So right, initially making sure that you know the need for the product so that you properly outline your vision,
Right.
and then making sure that that vision is achievable.
I agree, and just to complement what you just said, Agile teams also believe in planning onion, then it's not one level planning, right? For example, even from the inception, the planning has to go into thought. So what the planning onion talks about is you start with the vision, planning the vision, and then narrow down it to goals, set of high level goals, and then from there you derive at a roadmap. And it continues, right? So when it comes to the usual Scrum rituals, we probably have to work further. For example, sprint planning is another level of planning, and even daily Scrum is another level of planning, right? So it continues.
Yeah,
But I think
narrows
down and get to more specific details. It's quite challenging for any organization to adopt Agile. So in adopting Agile, particularly talking about the roadmap, do you have any recommendations or tips that you can provide to the Agile teams so that they can get their roadmap proper?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you think about your roadmap, and we talked about this earlier, you want to separate that from your backlog. Your roadmap isn't a list of features that you want to achieve. You really want to think about it as a higher level goal that you have for the product. So this is actually an article I read recently, which I really enjoy, and I think we're doing something similar now with our current product roadmap. You can break your roadmap down into 3 different sections, and in the article that I read, you've got the current section, kind of mid-future, and
Right.
far future.
Right.
And the way we've been doing it is kind of your current work, then maybe 2017, the next year, and then 2018 plus. And as you get further out, you want to make sure that your roadmap is really high level. So, for example, say you're getting feedback about your sign-in screen, and you're hearing from marketing that the sign-in button needs to move over here.
Yeah.
Or you're hearing from the field that they don't understand where the create account link is. You want to make sure that you don't put move create account link on your roadmap, that you kind of take that step back and think about, why are these issues coming up? Is there something bigger that's wrong here? So maybe the true issue is that my sign-in page just is confusing, or my onboarding process is confusing. So when you're looking when you're looking to your roadmap, maybe your roadmap would say improve onboarding process.
Yeah.
And as you got closer, as you said, with our sprint planning, backlog grooming, and other Agile practices, we define what those changes are going to be. So your roadmap is higher level, more strategic, and then get into the details in other practices. And then one other tip, this is really basic, but I think it's really important.
Right.
As I said before, your roadmap is the best way to communicate the goals that you have. So make sure that your roadmap is up to date. Make sure that your roadmap is easily accessible by everyone.
Yeah.
So for example, we use Confluence, and it's a quick link that everyone can access. So I think that's also very important. Make sure it's not buried in a drive somewhere. Make sure it's accessible.
I like the last point that you brought up, and if you look at Agile concepts, we are talking about 3 pillars: transparency, inspection, and adoption. So making things visible to everyone who is interested on the product is quite crucial. So what you just said is very valid for agile teams, for that matter, any project management teams.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. All right, so the last question in our discussion today, this is about the stakeholder collaboration again. Now, when it comes to collaborating with the stakeholders, do you see any key success factors, right, that we have to get in to our team setting? Plus, who are the kind of the key stakeholders that we have to get involved in creating a roadmap?
Sure, and I think to your last question about the key stakeholders, I think it depends company by company and product by product. But I think the basic ones are going to be marketing, sales, executives, but honestly the most important stakeholder is your user. That's who's going to dictate what is on your roadmap. And when it comes to success factors around that, I think you want to think about your roadmap as a collaboration between those teams. So making sure that as you're building your roadmap, you're reaching out to the various groups to make sure you understand their needs. And as I said before, that you're not taking them as granular needs, that you're thinking about needs at a higher level, and putting that on your roadmap. I think that can be done in various ways. Each team is going to handle it differently based on their desires, but I think I personally have a regular standing stakeholder call where we talk about the roadmap, both immediate work and future work, and it's a chance for me to get feedback on my strategies and my plan, and also to refine it with the group.
Okay, so I have just two leading questions to what we just discussed. The first one is now, how regular you think you should review the roadmap? First place, do you think we need to review the roadmap, time to time during the release or set of releases?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think it probably depends on the part of the product life cycle that your product is in.
Right.
For a brand new product, you're getting a lot of feedback from various groups, and things could change rapidly. You might find out, for example, that what you thought was a user need is actually tweaked a little bit. So I would say for an early product, more frequent reviews are necessary. So maybe it's bi-weekly, every month, whatever makes sense according to the amount of feedback that you're getting. Maybe for a product that's later in its life cycle, you understand the market more, it's more established, that could be more like quarterly or even longer than that. So I do think it depends on where your product is.
You believe that looping the technical subject matter expertise into some of these critical decisions would add value, and it's kind of crucial as well.
No, absolutely, and that's an oversight on my part because, as I said before, you want to make sure that your roadmap is feasible. And so if you, for example, have something on your roadmap that isn't technically possible,
exactly.
you can't have that there. So that's a great point. You want to make sure that anything you put on your roadmap, you review with your engineers, your QA, whoever it is that is your technical expertise, and make sure that what you want to do is feasible. And again, I think we've learned this, that if you bring up the roadmap later on, if you share what your plans are earlier in the process, it allows the team to also prep for that future goal, right? If there's something technically that we can do to achieve that more easily later, you're able to accomplish that through better communication. Right,
so that's pretty much what I wanted to discuss with you today, but in summary, what I would see is that the roadmap is a great product planning tool. It's kind of a strategic tool. It's a strategic tool, whereas the product backlog will be a tactical tool. And one thing I found in my Agile career is that product roadmap complements the product backlog, right? So they don't compete. So when you have a proper product roadmap, you can definitely end up having a better product backlog. So my observation is that most of the agile teams just limit themselves to the product backlog, where they might be ended up at a dead end.
Sure.
Right? So just to summarize from your end, so do you have any final thoughts, or you want to summarize our discussion into
Yeah, no,
few sentences?
I think you captured a lot of it, right? Your backlog is really the more detailed vision, or excuse me, the detailed next steps for that roadmap. So I agree, they're not competing. It's really, if you think about it as a narrowing, you have your roadmap, which then narrows into the specific plans to achieve that roadmap. And then, as I said before, just ensuring that your roadmap is easily accessible, that you properly communicate with the various stakeholders to ensure that it's on track and feasible.
All right. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you.